We'd like to give a huge thank you to our new sponsor, Go Primal Apparel. By using our code Goliath10, listeners can get 10% off all purchases made at goprimalusa.com. That's code Goliath10 for 10% off. Go with confidence, go with pride, go primal. Thank you again to Go Primal Apparel, and now back to the video.
Hello, everyone. This is Loving Goliath, where, as Willow says, we get to discuss the monster within. How did you like that, Willow?
Wow. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's me doing my poetry slam snapping for you.
Nice.
Awesome. So I'm so excited. I've been very excited about talking to Jefferson Roc because he's an amazing guy who's got this product, Amy, which is going to do amazing things for people with mental health and mental wellness, and just breaking some of the stigma and moving forward, which is what we all want. Yeah. So Jefferson Roc, how the hell are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Very great and grateful. I had a good night's sleep, so I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Nice. And let's be honest, Willow, tell everybody how you're feeling.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking.
For all the listeners, Jefferson and I just heard her like whine and bellyache for probably a good 20 minutes.
Bellyache, you prompted this. You said, no, be honest. No, you have to tell. So I'm a little tired. I don't do mornings. I do nighttime at night, like 3 a.m. I do my best work. I'm my most creative. I'm like, all right, let's start a new business. I've got ideas for apps. I'm gonna go for a walk now. And then 8 a.m. you can't get anything out of me. I'm sorry. But I'm here. I'm
Whatever
excited.
works.
Yeah.
So you don't really know Willow too much, but she plays the part of the fool very well. Okay, so let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jefferson.
Of course. I was born in Haiti. You want me to go all the way back?
Whatever you're comfortable with, just so the listeners know who
Of
they're
course.
talking to.
Let's start from the genesis and the inception of Jefferson Roc. I was born in Haiti, moved to Canada with my mom and three sisters in '89. I'm an '80s baby. I was born in '85. So we got to Canada. I grew up in Montreal. That's the reason for the funny English at times. I'm French. I'm French speaking. I grew up in a very female dominant household. My mom is the one who raised me. My role models were my aunt and my grandma. I have three sisters. I was the only man of the house for a very long time before my younger cousin was born. My family was, very much focused on education, spiritual values, biblical principles, and pushed me to always be the best of myself. School was kind of the law at home. It was, have you done your homeworks? Have you studied that? Did you read this? Did you read that before anything else? So education played a big role in my life, but I didn't pursue the highest education. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I feel like it's in my DNA. I feel like I was just born with that fiber, with that spark to make things happen and to get to the end goal, right? So I've had that drive inside of me for the longest time. I started a business really young. At 20 years old, I was distributing flexible light panels for a company called InnoLight. I was an exclusive distributor under my own banner. I led that company for 4 years after doing my accounting degree, and it was called Light Media at the time, and it was a failing business. I was generating a lot of revenue, but I was burning through cash so fast that I couldn't keep it alive, and I made all the possible mistakes. But essentially, it made me the man I am today. This experience was really pivotal for me, coming from an um, accounting background. I went right in the middle of the ocean trying to swim there. I learned some very key skills that paid dividends in my sales career. So following that experience, I've done business development for the last 15 years, where I had a very successful adventure, a very successful career, and in part because of my entrepreneurial journey at such a young age.
Nice. That's super, super interesting. Like, what created, I mean, I want to get into talking about Amy and all that stuff, but I'm just kind of
Hmm.
curious. So what sparked that entrepreneurial drive?
You know, I feel like seeing my mom always striving to keep all the lights on and to give us everything we needed. Um, Working three jobs and still being there to cook food. We were clean, dressed. We got food on the table. She was doing homeworks with us and doing all of that by herself. It's. I think this is where I get my inspiration from.
Mm,
Her sister, my aunt, was pretty much the same, always pushing us to. Here's her comparison. She's like, when you eat your food, you do finish that entire meal, right? You finish it at 100%, right? So when you do your exam, why is it that you don't get to 100%? She
uh,
said, you give you 100% on everything,
oh, what a great
everything,
lesson.
right? So it's really these two women that really inspired me, I guess, and that really transferred that drive, that spirit of ambition, that entrepreneurial spirit into me, I guess.
Nice, nice. I don't want to get too off topic because I really want to hear more about Amy, which sounds amazing. But
Yeah,
I just want to ask you one more question.
sure.
This is how I interview. This is how I talk
Yeah.
to people. But did you feel any kind of like like without a male figure or a strong kind of male figure in the household, or
Mm,
did you have other male figures that you kind of mentored you, or like what was that like? Just out of
Very good
curiosity.
question. Very, very good question. And I'll be honest with you. The absence of a male role model started manifesting in the last 3 years.
Mm,
I'm 36 today, and only in the last 3 years I've been starting to ask myself, what if I had a dad in my life early on? But
mm,
as I was growing, I never really felt like I was missing something because I didn't know
mm,
better,
yeah.
right? These two women were just giving me everything I needed,
Hmm.
and they were raising me, as a man as well, even in a female dominant household. I had the right reflex, the right conversations. They give me space to be who I was. It's only as an adult, as a man, having to take decisions for my own family, looking back, and like, what if? And I just started that journey, so I can't really fully understand, tell you, you know, the gaps that I think I have in my life, but I
Mm,
started pondering on this only in the last 3 years.
hmm. Well, I mean, just kind of a question, but as far as you talk about the gaps, I mean, whatever gaps there may be, you probably might made up with. I mean, you're doing this amazing stuff in mental health and awareness, but that influence of strong women who are giving that, you're a man, but experiencing a lot of those things that would be probably implemented or passed down from strong women must be really, really a big part of what you're doing with Amy, right?
Yeah, totally,
Hmm,
totally.
amazing. So why don't you tell us about Amy then?
For sure. I can't tell you about Amy without, explaining how I got to this epiphany or
Yes.
realization. Um, you know, as a man in sales, as an entrepreneur, or as a man, just period, we deal with so many things in life that stress or anxiety is foreign concepts to us. We just push through the wall and ignore how we feel, ignore our emotions, and don't really talk about it. Not that I wanted to portray myself as such, but stress wasn't a thing for me. I've always, dealt with my stress very well until 2 years ago, where it hit me back in the face, like a slap in the face. Um, it started with some symptoms of stress and anxiety that I uh, couldn't control. Um, my thoughts running, not being able to fall asleep at night, waking up in the middle of the night. And then at the climax of that experience, it started being through nightmares that I was experiencing that were very, very scary. And then many nights I had night sweats. I would wake up in the middle of the night with my shirt soaking wet. And at that time, there was so much going on. I had lost my job. Um, I had just bought this beautiful house that we built, my wife and I. And Mateo was only a year or close to 2 years old. He was still very, very young. So there was a lot going on that was pressuring on me. And I guess it was time for me to kind of reflect. And I didn't take time for myself. So my body reacted to all that stress. And I was very, very anxious, but I couldn't understand these symptoms because for me, it was a very new experience. And as this was happening, I didn't talk about it. My wife would wake up with me and like, why are you so wet? What happened? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just hot, right? But other than that, I didn't investigate it more. So it kept me really isolated. And I, I became, I was scared. I was scared of what was happening to me. And as I was thinking about these things, I could only have my kids in mind. I'm like, what if this happened to my kids? This is bad. Like it sucked. Like I couldn't tell this story without shedding tears before. Only like in the past year and a half, I became really comfortable with what happened because I understand it now. But it was bad. Okay, it was bad. But at the very same time, as I was going through these things, there's people around me that were going through their own experience as well. A coworker um, committed suicide.
Mm.
I was just starting to get to know him, and we did Thanksgiving together. We went for walks together, um, and he went, back to his country in the UK and never came back. At the very same time, my one of my good friend's wife was suffering from postpartum depression, and she attempted. It could have been very bad, but thankfully she's still breathing.
Attempted the
So,
suicide, you mean?
hmm
Oh,
hmm
wow.
hmm 2 months old baby.
Wow, crazy.
hmm So, you know, thinking about what was happening to me and looking around me and seeing that people are actually struggling, and that's where I started thinking about, hey, what's going on, right? So, as a sales professional, what we're trained to do is act as business consultant. So, part of my job is to understand, business problem, its ramification, which line of business is the problem impacting. There's something that we call the pain chain. So, one problem in, like, let's say, accounting. Can be because of customer service in another department, right? So we try to understand the pain chain and how it flows throughout the organization, which line of business stakeholders are responsible and what's their role. What role do they play in the solutioning of that problem? So this is what I was trained to do in the past 15 years. So it became kind of a reflex for me, being in the middle of my nightmare, in the middle of my experience, kind of reverse engineer my own problem, right? And start thinking about why is it that I'm having this problem? Who's involved? Uh, what are the ramifications of this problem? And how is it that it's not easier to experience? Why is the experience of mental illness, of anxiety, of stress, of depression so isolating? The answer is because there's still stigma. There's stigma is huge. it's a mountain to go over for many people, and even myself at the time. Stigmas and taboos from a cultural perspective, where it's not even acceptable to talk about how you feel, to talk about these things that are challenging to you as a man, right? So I started thinking about the notion of, well, I'm pretty self-aware. I knew what was happening to me. And I knew of emotional intelligence because I know some of my managers in the past were talking about this training. And the question was, why is it that emotional intelligence is not fostered at school? It's not fostered in society. And digging deeper into emotional intelligence, I did my own research, and it turns out that uh, emotional intelligence, it is scientifically proven that emotional intelligence influence better psychological and physical health. It's in the science. However, emotional intelligence is from the mid-90s. So most millennials don't know too much about it, right? It's been 20 years, 20, 25, 30 years of study. And now there's more and more material around emotional intelligence. And what we're trying to do with Amy is really materialize emotional intelligence, have people exercise it, and capture learning opportunities so that we can better build that capacity in the individual. Well, let's go through some definition. Emotional intelligence is your ability to be self-aware, to be socially aware, to self-manage, and to manage your relationships. And then when you look at mental health, it's quite holistic. It's not only what's happening in your mind, it's not only the mental aspect, it's the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the financial, the nutrition, right? So how can you understand the context of your stressors and take action on them? But looking at mental health is really finding the coping mechanism that suits you, that suits your situation, your requirements, your coping mechanism, your belief system, right? So Amy as a platform really allows that experience to be defined by the end user. We're leveraging AI as a backbone ethically to be a companion for the end user. And some of the things that we do that are quite unique is the science that we're pulling from goes beyond, just emotional intelligence, improving psychological and physical health. We're pulling from behavioral science. We're pulling from tiny habit change. We're pulling from nonviolent communication, which is huge in building empathy towards ourselves. We're pulling from nonviolent communication to help people label, identify, qualify, or disqualify feelings. But unless we can share these feelings in a safe space, we are not addressing the stigma. Unless we normalize mental health conversations, we're not addressing the stigma or the taboos. And this is what we're doing first. This is number one mission.
Yeah, because we talked a little bit about that, how a lot of people, they like, especially in the workplace or whatever, they feel like they want to talk to somebody, but it's like, well, what if I do? What if I do? Like, what is the stigma? Will I be
retaliation?
Yeah, like, which is crazy, which is one of the things. Yeah, we're chatting a little bit about that, but it's big, right?
It's huge. We've done quite a bit of interviews with both people, with professional HR leaders. So we have a lot of information in the aggregate. We have a lot of perspective from different people as well. And there's a huge distrust with traditional HR, corporate HR. Let's face it, tools right now in the organization are not being leveraged or not being utilized. Before COVID, nobody was talking about mental health or mental illness. And there's no way that, post-COVID, you got it under control, you've implemented an EFAP if you didn't have one, and you provided telehealth, which is reactive. Telehealth is a reactive solution, right? It's good. There's nothing wrong against telehealth solution. And there's self-management applications that you have provided to your team, but the challenge is that these tools are not utilized based on stats. Historical data is telling us that EFAPs never had the adoption of employees. It's embarrassing to see that 12% of the workforce go and seek for help through EFAPs. And the reason being is that there's distrust. They fear that this information will be used against them. Because what we have to acknowledge is that sometimes the reason for an employee going on short-term disability leave or taking a leave of absence might be because of the workplace. The stress might have started with an overload of work, conflict with employees, unmet expectations, right? So as a result, they can't take it anymore and they leave. No later than last week, I was having the very same conversation with someone that is actually on leave. And what's happening is that they have to go back to this situation. They have to go back to the workplace, and they haven't addressed what was going wrong, right? So they go on leave again. But then they become a target for corporate HR, that this employee is not producing for the organization. So this is one of the reasons why employees don't necessarily access EFAPs. They fear that the data that is acquired from their utilization might be used against them. The fear of the perception of their directors, right? And this is coming from interviews that we've run one-to-one interviews, 90 minutes long at times, and even my personal experience. I didn't even know where was the EFAP. I didn't look for it, right?
Well, actually, on that note, what does that stand for?
Oh, sorry. Employee and Family Assistance Program.
Okay. Okay, just for everybody. Of course I do. Of course I do that. But for everybody else, if they didn't understand,
Of course.
I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah. So there's a lot of distrust with HR, and historically, they have to be honest with themselves. They haven't done the right thing at times. But now that COVID kind of ripped the Band-Aid off, and we see how bad is the scar, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror from both sides, from both the organization and the individual that is going through something, and take action on it, right? And for the organization, it needs to be more. It can't be lip service. You can't say that your people are your most valuable asset, and the only thing you did is implemented a portal for them to access anonymous services that you don't even know whether the problem was solved or not. You can even inquire the employee. You can ask him afterwards, how was it, right? There's this disconnect in the continuum of care, right?
So I sorry, I just wanted to ask. So for the pro, like I'm super fascinated by this whole conversation. But let's say somebody says, okay, I'm feeling this anxiety, I'm feeling this stress. I even maybe have to take a leave from work because of this. So walk me through the process. Like I don't have this emotional intelligence. I don't know how to cope. I need time off work. I'm gonna utilize Amy. And how would that work for this individual?
Huge thank you to our other sponsors of the day, New Bioceuticals. New science-based nutraceutical supplements engineered to elevate your new mind and new body. Use coupon code Benjamin Smith at checkout for 10% off all of your bioceuticals. That's coupon code Benjamin Smith for 10% off.
Okay, so let's start with the three main components of our platform. The first one is the circle of trust. The circle of trust is your support system. The people that you select in your life that could be in or outside the workplace that you want to normalize these conversations with. You want to be vulnerable with some people and tell them about, what happened over the weekend, how you're currently feeling, and any other environmental stressors that may be happening to you. when people hear about this, they kind of say, "Oh, I never talk about my personal things," but that's false. These conversations happen every day, next to the coffee station, in the elevator, uh, as you move to another meeting. There's, small chats happening left, right, and center. We're just providing a safe space that is secure, confidential, anonymous, from the perspective that employers cannot see what conversation is happening there, right? It's safe. And we just want people to have these conversations and normalize mental health conversations. And then at the other end, it's another supports group, but it's the wellness practitioners. Wellness practitioners, we call it the Champions Network. So wellness practitioners that represent the 5 tenets of mental health: mental, spiritual, physical, financial, and nutrition. And you want to have these 5 sets of professional available so that people have options to talk to a practitioner that corresponds to his actual stressor. Right? Sometimes you may not want to talk to a psychiatrist for your food disorder. Maybe you want to talk to the right nutritionist, right, that has that expertise, and they're out there. I'm thinking of Revive Wellness, based out of Edmonton, with whom we're going to partner to surface all of the nutritionists across the nation on our platform. And she uses behavioral science to help people with food disorder or with different nutrition goals. So this is an example for the Champions Network. In the middle, what helps orchestrate these transactions is the AI companion. Let's just call it Amy. What Amy does, it watches the semantic of language happening within the circle of trust and will prompt the user and ask questions. At the same time, users can also periodically input feelings, and this will further nourish the AI to actually. And there's a fourth component, a fourth feature that I didn't talk about, which is the personalized library. It's the content that the AI puts together for your consumption. So it could be reading material, videos, podcasts, even cognitive behavioral therapy, and ultimately self-management applications that we want you to try to cope with your actual stressor. So as the AI understands semantic of language, environmental stressors, internal factors, and external or macro events, that library is constantly in iteration. It's constantly evolving to adapt what Ben is going through. If the AI catches within your conversation that you're having a bad time sleeping, then the library automatically surface information about sleeping habits and suggest for you to have what we call superpath. These superpath are exercise-driven activities embedded in the application that you can do to set goals for yourself towards sleeping. How about going to bed early, right? How about tracking your sleep now? And we aim at pulling from different sets of technology to actually present that information and that data to you, such as your Apple Watch, right? Some biometrics device, right? So the AI really acts as the equivalent of Jarvis in the Iron Man suit, and really watch around you within the semantic of language what's going on and suggest for you to do things. Now, when it comes to when it comes to building that emotional intelligence literacy, there's definitely going to be some prompts that are coming from the AI, or prompts that are suggested by the end user. And when that happens, the AI guides you through nonviolent communication protocol to actually confirm that feeling. So let's say that you just inputted a feeling on the platform and you're saying that you're stressed or you're anxious or you're what have you. Nonviolent communication will ask you guided questions so that you can investigate through the origins of that feeling, and then make a decision for yourself whether that feeling was real or it's not real, right? And at that very moment, if you've come to the conclusion that this feeling is actually existing and you're acknowledging it, take action on it. Talk about it. Talk about it with a member of your circle of trust, or talk about it with a professional. And Amy would have matched you with the right professional based on your requirement, your profile, and the information that it compiles about you. So it's really that tailored experience that the AI can provide to 100,000 people all at once.
That's freaking amazing. I was trying to kind of get my head around it all, and now I basically, Amy is like a broker between the mind and the needs of the mind. So it brokers it, it's the broker in between. What does this individual need based on what he's saying, the dialogue that's coming out? What does he need to work on? What does he need? Who are the professionals? How can I broker them?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
amazing.
So when we'll be able to do that successfully, the experience of wellness is unique to everyone in the organization, right? What that will provide the employer is sentiment data that will allow them to really understand the need of their people in aggregate. To have a heat map of, hey, what is stressing my people at this current moment. It's January 15, people are back, and it seems like, oh geez, everybody is concerned about money, about their finances, because they spent quite a bit during Christmas. So I'm going to bring in some financial advisors and do some financial clinics, workshops on money management, and maybe that can help my workforce. You can better adapt your wellness offering, your benefit package, almost in real time.
Wow, like this is such a game changer. I mean, I know you don't have that much time to talk, but man, I could talk to you about this for days, because this seems like one of those, this as I'm listening to this, I'm envisioning how, like, of course this will be everywhere. This is the wave of the future. It has to be. This is amazing. This is so amazing.
And we're not suggesting for Amy to replace professional advice. But think of it this way. Even if you had one visit with your counselor per week, this is 52 hours in the year. It's still not sufficient to support you in the big scheme of things.
Not like this.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's what, like 20,000 practitioners across the country, right? There's 35 millions of us, right? Yeah. There's 35 million, and at any given time, one in five person is going through something. So if we do some quick math, that's 20% of the Canadian population. For 20,000 people, they're outnumbered. They need all the help they can get.
Yeah,
but most importantly, taking care of yourself doesn't stop after your visit with your counselor.
Yeah.
You got to flex that muscle every day.
Yeah.
And this is what we're providing. We're providing a space that you can flex the emotional muscle, right? That is confidential, that is with the people that you want to be vulnerable with, right? And in all anonymity. Because our business model is not centered around selling your information or profiting from your private data. Our business model is a SaaS offering for organization to purchase for you. So the organization make that spend. As the founder, my promise to people is to never, ever, 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 ever sell their private information or surface information that could put them at risk. And that's a promise. And we're going beyond that promise by establishing the right safeguards on the platform from a privacy, confidentiality perspective, to respect the highest regulation, GDPR, HIPAA, and all the other compliance and regulation that we have to abide to, just to make sure that people trust the platform enough to talk about the hard stuff in the Amy platform.
Wow, it's freaking amazing. So just for people listening, in my own way of thinking of it, like again, I like brokering it or whatever, but I was a personal trainer for a long time. People would come to me
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, and I would say, listen, your back's a little bit out. You need to go to a chiropractor for your back. Come back to me. We'll get your muscles going. You're having some. You're a vegetarian. Let's hear your nutrition. Go to a vegetarian. Come back to me. So basically, as a good personal trainer, things that are beyond my scope, I'll just broker you out to whoever. Right. That's
A
basically
hundred
what
percent.
Amy is doing. Right.
100%. And
Yeah.
you just brought a very interesting point. Um, for let's say for people that have like fitness goals, sometimes you're going to meet a fitness instructor. There's a disconnect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some fitness, not all of them are made equal, as you know. So the goal for the Champions Network is to provide almost the same experience as Tinder. Matching
Mm-hmm.
people with the right professional. If I just came out of pregnancy, for instance, I need to find someone that focuses on women and postpartum depression, and they're out there. Uh, if I'm an athlete and I need to train to compete, and the stress of tournament is weighing on me, then I need a trainer that understands that level of competitiveness of pushing my body, but also taking care of my mind. My personal fitness trainer understands both, right? He's almost like my counselor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is Amy. Which
Yeah.
is Amy, right? Like
Yeah.
this is so freaking amazing.
What's interesting to me is that on that subject, we often, when we're trying to deal with our own problems, and I think a lot of people, myself included, are of the mindset that it's mine to deal with, it's my mental health, it's not anyone else's mental health, so I'll deal with it. But we don't always need what we think we need, but we think we do. So we're like, oh, I need help with my anxiety. So we'll go to a counselor and we'll spend all this time trying to establish. So if we
Hmm.
do meet with our counselor for an hour a week, we're
Hmm.
still, how much of that time are we spending just figuring out, no, what you aren't dealing with is anxiety. What you're dealing with
Hmm.
is this. So
Hmm.
just getting to that. So even having Amy to help you get to the point quicker so that when you do go to counseling, those financial woes that you might also be having aren't being added on to by counseling time that you're spending just figuring out, oh, I wasn't anxious this whole time. I was just going through this.
A hundred
Because,
percent.
yeah, you spend so much time just trying to get to the point and not getting there. And then you're spending money and you're getting more stressed out.
Hmm. And over and above all that, Willow, there's the notion of that, people are not empathetic towards themselves. They are not leaving room for the way they feel.
Right.
Most of the time, they will either ignore it, which is a form of violence, um, and they won't address it. And then it's building on top of everything else until it becomes an actual mental health issue,
Hmm.
right? Stress, anxiety, depression. Anxiety is your mind playing tricks on you. It's things that haven't happened, but you're
Hmm.
obsessed. You're obsessed about, right? So on top of that, what we are trying to do is to build, that empathy, for self and for teams inside of organization. One of the things that is unique with our approach is that we didn't focus on building technology first. It started with a human problem, and then we explored the human problem through our ethnographic study. And the firm that we hired to do that, they have, um, behavioral science expertise, their PhDs in psychiatry, and user experience and interface design expert, right? They're called Different, DFFRNT.ca. They're based out of Ottawa. What came out of that research and that study is that we were able to reference the science that will help people self and co-regulate feelings through our platform, build mindful agency, build capacity to take care of yourself, to go after these solutions, uh, build your emotional quotient up, obviously, and then the notion of self and team empathy. The experience that we convey on our platform are conducive to these three clinical outcomes, right? And for the ecosystem, for the mental health solution that is out there, Amy is not there to replace. Amy's there to orchestrate. We are a consolidator. We will integrate other capacities. We will connect with EFAP and surface the information and the resource that the organization is making available for their employee. We're removing the friction of searching and looking for information. The AI pulls it from the available resources, right? So this is why we're unique.
So you're basically, the way I see it all is you're basically expediting a person's normal development of emotional intelligence so that they no longer need to rely on this, or not rely on this, but rely on kind of like guessing, like, oh, I hope I'm happy today. No, then they'll have that emotional intelligence because Amy will teach them by guiding them where they need to go. Yes.
And to recognize where they are.
Well, and it
Man.
seems like such a no-brainer for employers as well, because even if you are like the most heartless employer in the world, okay, so it's COVID and you want to pretend like you care, which like in 2022, employers can't afford to pretend that they care anymore. Let's just get that out of the way. You can't pretend anymore. But let's say that you are, and you're focused on making money and you're focused on hitting your quotas and your employees aren't happy, and all this time you've been going, great, you're not happy? Oh, sorry to hear that. Well, let's get you some therapy. Oh, sorry to hear that. Let's get you some this. But then you're sitting back in your penthouse suite going, what are they talking about? Like, they've been going to therapy for 2 years now and they're still not happy. Where's my money going? What am I investing in? So even if you are the biggest jackass in the world, it's still more financially and emotionally responsible to go through Amy, because you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your money. You know exactly what's going to happen. Like, it's so it's so obvious, right? It's so obvious for everybody that it's a no-brainer.
It's like a no-brainer. Yeah.
I'm glad that you presented it like that, because what we're trying to foster is accountability. Organizations are not the only one to blame. They spend quite a bit of money. It's 86 billion that they spend every year to help with their employees. We're trying to foster accountability amongst people as well. They have to do the right thing. They have to take care of themselves. They have to seek for these solutions. They need to exercise their mental health. We're way past beyond mental health awareness. We have to move to mental health literacy. We have to move to emotional intelligence literacy. How are you exercising your mental health, right? And be intentional about it. Don't hide. Be intentional about it. Tell the organization what you need, and then it's a partnership.
I gotta say, you, my friend, have changed the world. It's just a matter of now. Well, you have, because this is going to be something that the next generations coming up will just take for granted the fact that somebody came up with this idea that I like, dude. This is freaking world changing, in my opinion. I think it's so incredible.
Before we continue, I'd just like to say for everyone listening, we are not currently sponsored by Amy. So all of the nice things that we're saying are at this moment of our own volition. We're not being held for ransom.
It's true, but like, honestly, like, there was a time when, again, somebody would be like, what, talk to somebody across the world? Like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. Everything started in the mind of one person. And I believe that this is like so revolutionary. It's gonna change the world. I think it's just amazing.
It started with my personal experience, but I'd like to think that everybody's going through something. This is inspired by people. We have always kept our focus towards the human. We focused on the human problem. We focused on how humans behave, and when we started building technology, we focused on user interaction, experience, and interface design, that user interface. So this solution really puts people at the very center of everything, where they are no longer, they're no longer a passive contributor to wellness, but they move to become an active and proactive contributor to their well-being.
Oh man, beautiful. I'm so excited to talk to you in depth about like how we could the Goliath Foundation could just totally support and what you're doing and utilize this amazing tool. And oh my God, I'm so excited.
I think what you're doing with the Goliath Foundation is important for men, because there's just way too much stigma and even taboos on men's shoulder. And I'm saying men's for everyone listening, but this is the same for everyone, every marginalized group, every marginalized communities or demographics. They need to find healing in safe spaces. And when we talk about co-regulation, sharing my experience with you really stabilize this feeling, and gives empathy from one to the other, and that stops, the pattern of deterioration of a feeling that can morph into anxiety, depression, and what have you. So there's a space on the Amy platform for community building, like-minded individual, people that are going through the same things. They can access these private communities and cope with each other, and talk about how they're dealing with a specific situation, right?
Just amazing, fascinating, awesome. But again, it's kind of funny because with all the technology and all the things that have been going on over the last 20 years, it's amazing that this is not already like a major kind of just the way things are, just kind of like, whatever so many other things are, but it's going to be, it has to be. It's like,
for sure,
again, it's such a no-brainer that this is the way of the future as far as mental health, which is going to help the whole world, right?
There's many other great solutions out there. I'm not suggesting that we're better than anything else. We're a big complement. That's what we are, right?
Yeah, but again, that's like everything. I mean, there's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a million ways to eat, to exercise, to do everything. But again, as a personal trainer, my job is to find what resonates for you.
Exactly.
And that's what Amy does, basically.
Exactly.
What resonates for you.
Exactly.
Well, and also by cutting some of the fat on the process of finding the right therapist, you're also not wasting your practitioner's time. You're also not
100%.
going through these sessions and then going, oh, sorry, I don't think you're, I mean, all of us that have gone to therapy have had a therapist that we just don't jive with, and they're not right for us, or they don't.
And it happens a lot.
All the time. So even from that perspective, you're not wasting a professional's time. You're getting to the right person quicker, and they can do their job.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We'll leave some links on the on this podcast for people to find out more about what you're doing, what you're up to, about Amy, and hopefully we'll be able to talk more and in more depth soon. And again, the Goliath Foundation, we support this 100%.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jefferson.
Hey,
it was amazing to talk to you.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for amplifying my voice and sharing this story.
Oh man, it's
it's a pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing story. It's a pretty amazing venture. I'm so fascinated by your perspective and the way that you came to this, and also, I mean, yeah, I could talk about everything you're doing with Amy for the rest of the day, but I'll leave it at that. I think it's super fascinating. I think it's really important, and I'm excited to chat more as it develops.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. Have a great day, man.
Same to you. We'll talk again.
Thank you all so much for joining us, as always. We love hearing from you, so if you have comments, questions about the episode, topics you want us to cover, or anything else, you can find us on Instagram as Loving Goliath, on Facebook as the Goliath Foundation. You can email us at lovinggoliath@gmail.com, or you can find out more information about the Goliath Foundation at thegoliathfoundation.com. Hey, did you know that 36% of our listeners tune in through Apple Podcasts? If that's you and you liked what you heard today, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye!
So if I like cuss you out right now while we're still recording, you can cut all that out and put in bye. Thanks for listening to
Bye,
Goliath.
everybody.
Bye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thanks
You're
so-
the worst daughter ever.
You're so grounded. I know you're 30, but you're still so grounded.
You're grounded to the office today.
Okay, well, I'm gonna stop this recording. You
Okay.
could add that as you could add this little bit of nonsense
The
as
blooper reel.
as on the blooper reel. Okay, here we go. Stop and